Hey, this is Notser, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Thunderer. This is the premium tier 10 British battleship, and it's bad. It's a horrible ship. If that's all you came to watch, well, it's terrible. And I don't know what to say. Wargaming needs to buff it, and they should buff it, and I expect a buff. But at this point, there's no buff on the horizon, and I would love to talk about why it sucks, why I would want to change it, and what I would want to change. And hopefully that's compelling enough that you guys can show interest in it. Please leave in the comments what you think. I am, of course, trying to figure out compelling versions of the ship that people would actually play or be into. And obviously we're working towards that. So let's talk about things that can change, or what is good about the ship. Well, it's using the Conqueror hull, and that's similar to the Ohio. So for both of those ships, the fact that the Ohio is using the Montana hull and the Thunder is using the Conqueror hull, these hulls work. They're very balanced. They are great at mitigating damage. They have great AA protection, maneuverability, all that stuff. I don't have any problem with the speed or anything related to the hull of the ship. It does, however, have the raised citadel that came with 8.6 to the Conqueror. And that does subtract a little bit of survivability, because if you show a side to someone who can punish you, and they happen to punish you, you'll take more damage than you would have in 8.5 or previously. But the 8-gun situation, it's so glaring, it's so obvious, it's so imbalanced. The Ohio has 8 guns of 457, super heavy AP, and it has cruiser-like accuracy, 200, 210, maximum meter dispersion. This is a battleship. It has battleship accuracy. It doesn't have super heavy AP. It's more of the high explosive variety. But it's horrible, the accuracy. I mean, you can't consistently rely on the shells going where you shoot. And if I'm honest, that's a dead on arrival ship right there, because we have just moved into a world where you either are accurate or you're not. And if you're accurate, you're probably in a competitive game mode. If you're not accurate, you're probably ignored. And I don't want the Thunderer to be ignored, but I think it will be, especially if the Ohio stays near its balance and the Thunderer doesn't change near enough. There's no reason to get this. You could have almost this exact same experience for free by owning a Conqueror, because you can equip the 8-gun 457 variant. You have the Conqueror hull, obviously. You get the super heal, which was recently buffed. You don't get defensive AA. Oh man, goodness, so sorry. You can equip your legendary module with your Conqueror, so you have faster rudder, so you can match this. I mean, there's just nothing here. There's no reason for this to exist, and I don't know why they offered this version. So let's think about it. You've got 457 guns on a Conqueror chassis. How can you make that compelling? And different from the Ohio. That's another key feature here. They're both coming out relatively close to each other, and they both are offering relatively the same style of experience. You got to bring the accuracy up. First of all, the accuracy is horrible. It's not even in the same conversation. Conversely, you need to bring the accuracy down of the Ohio. It's just too accurate. It's too accurate when you use the accuracy module in slot 6 for the Americans. It's too accurate base. It is great that it's that accurate. It feels wonderful, but it is so devastating. I think the game can't afford it to be that accurate. So I'd probably nerf the Ohio's maximum accuracy when accounting for the accuracy module to somewhere like 220, 230 in its maximum meter dispersion. I think right there it would feel much more in line with everything else, and it would still have that sort of rewarding big punchiness that the Ohio has. It's got that big, heavy AP alpha. The trajectory really punishes battleships and battle cruisers and really big ships. The Thunderer doesn't have any of that. The Thunderer needs something to justify its existence. And you know what? Its high explosive can be that. Its maneuverability can also be that. I don't know necessarily that the defensive AA is going to be that for me, I don't know that defensive AA is the skill of choice when considering a battleship, but with 8.7's defensive AA sort of mini priority sectors being introduced, I think that it should just not be a part of the ship. Instead, do something like hydroacoustic. Something that you've used before on the Brits and are completely fine with. Because that priority sector is legitimately like a mini defensive AA. It's a short-term activation. You face it towards the incoming target. It increases your damage output for a short time. It is a noticeable increase in effectiveness if used correctly. Sounds like defensive AA to me. It just ends up being like a wasted consumable slot with very little use that I find. So I think swap it out for Hydro, make the rudder fast, keep it fast, obviously, and then make the guns accurate, and have it have normal battleship AP. It certainly won't be better than what you were getting offered with the Ohio. It'll just be outclassed by that. But giving it normal battleship AP, having the guns be accurate, having hydroacoustic, having this rudder, I think you could justify the heal that's attached to it. The heal's sort of in between of like a super heal and a mediocre normal heal. Maybe improve the rate that it is recharged. I really like how the Massachusetts and the Georgia and the Ohio have a quick return on their heal. Oh, and also, I know that they should do this with the Ohio. They need to nerf that heal. They basically gave the Ohio the Iowa's heal with the cooldown of the Massachusetts. So I don't know if you guys paid attention, but probably 3 to 6 months ago, Wargaming buffed the heal rate of all but the Montana in the American line. It can't be that, it just can't be outclassed that badly. But it could be the same heal that they put on the Ohio on the Conqueror and nerf the heal potentially so that it's more in line with the Massachusetts and the Georgia and all that stuff. And if they couple that with sort of a nerf to gun accuracy slightly, that would feel like a good trade-off for the Ohio. And hydroacoustic, the heal, the faster rudder, accurate 457 HE would be pretty cool. Because right now, what competitive is finding is that we're dealing with Soviet battleships. Big, ugly Soviet battleships with giant armor values. And one of the best tools for dealing with giant, ugly Soviet battleships, and I'm just saying ugly because I'm teasing the armor, the best way to deal with that is to overmatch with HE so that you can freely spam on the target and punish any of their tankiness. I think the Conqueror and the Thunder and all the British battleships need to offer that. If they aren't already doing that, I would just make sure that this HE shell is really effective at countering something like a Kremlin. Not necessarily that it is better than the 419s or equal to, but the HE of the Thunder should be its standout feature. Its accuracy should also be a standout feature if you're trying to match what the Vanguard's already trying to do. And that's what I thought this was supposed to be. I thought this was just supposed to be a tier 10 Vanguard. And if you do that, yeah, I would like to play that ship. I think that ship would be pretty fun. I think it would be very fun. It's one of the things that I'm exploring actively right now with some battle cruisers like the Yoshino. They are very accurate, and they deal with stuff like the 60mm armor on the Kremlin very well, and the 57mm, 58mm armor of the Yamato very well. And you might say, oh, well, that's such a very specific breakpoint threshold. It is, but when you're in a competitive game and the token battleship is always the Kremlin or the Vladivostok or whatever, it's nice to have the option to counter the meta. And I think that's something that's fascinating and cool about games, is that you can have a different meta or a different expected outcome when loading into a game a couple weeks or a month later, because just the game is ever evolving. People are refining their play, and I think you need to play. Ooh, we got a Citadel. We got an HE Citadel on that guy. You got to place the game and the the vehicles that can directly counter the tools and the options that are occurring. I just think that's a natural progression in the game, and that should always be something that's prioritized. I know it sucks to have a Conqueror firing from max gun range, just spamming fires on you. I know it sucks. But you know what else sucks? Oh, and he was burning down. That's great. It really sucks when there's really no adequate tool to deal with a problem. And I feel like we need a little bit more of an adequate tool that is defined to counter the Soviet battleship play, because they are really prevalent and competitive. And I always want to make sure there's plenty of tools in the tool chest so that people feel like, okay, cool, we're good. This works. You could also, you know, the British have better gun velocity, so they could operate more comfortably around the Kremlin, you know, get good distance. I mean, they're basically made to counter the Soviet battleships. So why don't you make them counter Soviet battleships? Good gun accuracy, consistent, the heel can recover, it has good maneuverability, and go from there. You know, it's a really interesting, compelling conversation when you're talking about designing ships that are specifically designed to do one thing very well. This doesn't do anything very well. Its heel is inadequate, has a raised citadel, its accuracy on its HE is bad, accuracy on its AP is bad, it has defensive AA, which is almost useless. You know, you might use 1 or 2 charges per game. It does have faster rudder, which is nice, but you know, that's where we're at right now with the Conqueror. The Conqueror. That's where we're at right now with the Thunderer. So, you know, tell me what you think. What is a version of the ship that feels compelling? If you're one of the people who enjoyed the Vanguard, did you feel like the Vanguard playstyle is compelling enough to bring up to tier 8? I know that Wargaming had a conversation with some of the CCs in the past where it's like, you know, you guys tested very well with the Vanguard. Or, yeah, the Vanguard. Gosh, I'm trying to remember all the different names. But after playing and seeing it for a while in the live client, it's sort of mediocre damage. Wow, really? Yeah, the damage output isn't very consistent. Why is that? Because the guns aren't accurate. Because it's only 8 guns. We've got to try and make sure that the 6 and 8 gun variants are accurate enough that people want to play them. You know, I have a tough time even wanting to play my Bismarck because of the accuracy. So when I look at something like the Thunderer, or the Bismarck, or the Ohio, or the Georgia, or the Gneisenau, I'm really trying to decide if Wargaming has done an adequate enough job of making it accurate so that I feel like I can still contribute and my skill can still be displayed and expressed anywhere on the map that my gun, well, or nearly anywhere on the map, depending on your skill. And I don't feel that way at all about the Thunderer. Not at all. No way. But as far as this game is concerned, we did a pretty good job of defending. We were able to get 10 fires. 10 fires. And we only had 51 shells make contact, so, you know, you do the math. It's okay. 10 is average, probably. But we still died, and there's still plenty of enemies still alive. And, you know, I feel like a good player. But the Thunderer doesn't make me feel like a very good player. The Thunderer makes me feel like a very unfortunate player. We just, it's a wild ride, man, trying to play the Thunderer and talk about it with any interest at all, when in the back of your mind you're like, oh, well, you know, the Ohio's still there. Oh, the Siegfried's still there. These are guns with, well, these are ships with a low amount of guns, and yet they can place their shells very accurately. So I'm just hoping that Wargaming has a new blitz on balancing that they're gonna put on the Thunderer that we haven't heard about. I can't justify buying it at all. I would never buy it in its current state. Never. Ever. I wouldn't spend a second unlocking it. It's that bad. Now, we've talked about the Thunderer. Got some positive news. Wargaming is going to be patching in the updated variant of the Colbert. Many of you have probably noticed that There was a dev blog last week where they lowered the fire chance, well, they're going to lower the fire chance, increase the shell damage, reduce the range, and do a couple other things to change sort of what it actually does. I can't wait to try that out. I get that version tonight and tomorrow. When you're watching this video, I will have the updated variant of that. Also, the Siegfried. The Siegfried is getting a range extension on its secondary guns. Now, I don't know that I would run a secondary build cruiser. I've done it in the past with that Rune video like 3 years ago. I will absolutely be testing this though. We're going to be doing, just a couple changes, making sure that it can get a little bit of secondary range to see if, there's ever a token situation where it actually is useful. But I'm really pleased with the Siegfried, and offering up range on your secondaries just gives another option for players to make use of. And I think that's great. It's not taking away from anything. It's not invalidating anything. So I'm excited to check out both the Siegfried and the Colbert after the changes. And we will, of course, be making a video on both of those as soon as possible. I don't foresee that there's going to be any issue with that. They're pretty straightforward ships. The Colbert, for anyone who's, not familiar, the Colbert will be the first of many, probably, available to the Research Bureau. And that's coming in 8.7. So we've got to get it right. Also, I think, aren't they taking away the improved acceleration and the improved maneuverability that they gave it? I think they gave it like the British improved acceleration. That is an idea that they could also do for the Thunderer. If they weren't interested in giving it tangible buffs in its guns, and they should always do that, or, improving the heal, why not consider giving it improved acceleration? Or something like that that's very British. That way they could sort of double up on skills that they can take. Just anything and everything to give it some character that British players would be familiar with, but it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility for a ship like that. And I think if they, honestly look at themselves and say to themselves, okay, we don't really have something that people want right now. How can we make it something that people want? I think they could actually make a pretty good, compelling case. I even got a guy who likes the Duke of York of all things, which seems absolutely insane to me. And ooh, the Midway is able to finish off the Salem, and with 20 seconds left, we actually have a lead. I think we win this game. And the only way we lose is if the enemy aircraft carrier is able to kill the Hindenburg, which I don't think he can. There's not enough. Yeah, great dodge, great job. And it was so hard to get this damage outcome, this kind of success. It just is too much effort for so little reward. So go back to the drawing board, guys, on the Thunderer, please. The skin is awesome. The premium camo for the Thunderer will sell it just in itself. So let's just try and equal that, guys, and I think we'll be set up for success. Can't wait to see the next version, though. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to check out more of my content, you can click the most recent or the most relevant uploads. You could also choose to subscribe to my channel. We do daily World of Warship videos, first impression, how-to, news, review related. My North American recruit invite is on the screen. You can take advantage of that. I stream at twitch.tv/Notser. Thank you, have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time.